All right. Welcome, everybody. This is the Plan of Conservation Core Committee, also the Planning Commission special meeting, a joint meeting. It is October 22nd, 2024, it's 7 p.m., and we are in Town Hall Room 209. All right. Who's here? I am here. Scott Dale, I'm the chair of the Planning Commission, and we have also Mark Wollengart, who is now a regular member of the Planning Commission. We have Tony Capiello, chair of Conservation, Kurt Timmerman, chair of Zoning, Jim Fisher, chair of Economic Development. We also have Frank. Do you want to?
Frank Fish and BFJ Planning and Thomas.
And Emily Tolbert, DFJ Planning.
Okay,
And
great.
by the way, I apologize for being overdressed. I had a court case today, not personally for the firm, and we're representing someone, so I had to dress up for that at any rate.
No problem.
But yeah, we did, Scott, sort of an agenda that the three of us can sort of just go over with you, and we don't mean to, as you have questions or just interrupt us, or this is kind of nice to just have a roundtable,
Yes.
kind of work session with you all. So.
It's a little easier on the neck as well.
Yeah, right. So, at any rate, my part of this, I'm going to go through the timeline a little bit. Emily's going to go through community engagement, community and existing conditions, and then Thomas is going to go through a little bit the affordable housing, just so you're aware of it, because I think you are, because in our contract, the major thing is the POCD, but then there's an additional study, which is an affordable housing plan update. You have an affordable housing plan, so it's to do a new one, and Thomas will go through that, and then I'll go through a proposed plan outline, and then Emily's going to go through some visioning ideas for the workshop, because actually we're meeting at a good time, because we want to make sure that we met with you prior to the upcoming workshop. So the timeline is really the second page, and by the way, it's similar to what you've already seen, because this is the timeline that's basically in our contract, and so it's we started with you in a meeting already, and this is kind of going through next year, right into the early fall. So we do hope to be finished by then, and I think also you want to be finished by then. It's, so that's the overall timeline, and as you can see, we're hoping to have the committee meetings. You can see the yellow dots there in 1.2, that second line, and they'll continue. It's not that they end, in May. They'll continue, but they're going to continue as meetings with you, where there's actually things. We'll have a POCD draft. That's a triangle down there on the 3.2. We'll have to have some meetings with you to prepare that, to get your input before it goes out for what's called a 65, or we refer to it as 65-day review, because you got to give the regional planning agency time to review the plan. You need to hold a public hearing. So we're going to be meeting with, we'll have all those meetings with you, of course. But working up to it is those yellow sort of circles on 1.2, the second line. They're almost, they are pretty much monthly. So I think it will keep us, we want to stay very close to you, because this needs to be your plan and reflective of the community, because every community is slightly different. So I want to make sure that this does stay close to your, your oversight of what we're producing. And again, everything that we produce, as we produce it, we'll send to Laura, and we hope that after you see it, it can go on the website, so that, again, the objective being that the public will have a chance to see some things before various workshops, and particularly see pretty much the whole thing before the public hearing on the website. That's not going to prevent someone, as I always mention this to everybody, there'll still be someone at the public hearing that comes and says, gee, I didn't know anything about this, but we'll
Right.
do our best with outreach to get, to get this out really through the website and other means. So, and Emily's gonna get at that in talking about, the sort of public participation. So you can see here, what we're trying to do for the first workshop is get a little bit of work done on phase 2, so that some of these, what we call Brookfield today, and you can see that 2.1, 2, 3, 4, those are basically the introductory, they will become the introductory chapters. So there'll be an introduction, a regional setting, then there'll be a trends analysis, social economic conditions, population, and you'll see tonight, Emily's gonna cover some of this. We have some of this work underway now, so that we're hoping to show that in the first workshop, which is that purple dot in November. We don't wanna go further than that, because the danger is if we do too much before the first workshop, the public gets a sense that, hey, these guys are already, made up their minds on certain things. We haven't made up our minds at all. And the first workshop is really to explain to the public what we're doing and what we've been asked to do, and just to give a report on just your existing conditions. So there's not gonna be any, recommendations, there's not gonna be any of that sort of thing happening in the first workshop. And then we get, in phase 3, we'll get through all the chapters in the plan. And that would lead up to a second workshop, which we kind of discussed with you previously, but that's that down below there. The second workshop would really, I'm sorry, not down below, but it's the under 1.7 again.
That's the one in April.
April or May, April.
April, yeah, we established
Yeah.
the.
Yeah, oh, good,
Yeah,
good.
we set a date.
We set a
Yeah.
date, good. And so that's good. And then I wanted to mention here, you'll see on the affordable housing plan in a different color. And that plan, Thomas will report on it in a few minutes about the affordable housing plan. So we can discuss that in a few minutes. But let me turn this to Emily so we can talk about and Scott, this was a question you had to me on the phone, the stakeholders
Right.
and public outreach.
Mhm.
Yeah, and before we get to that, I just wanted to note that the main difference, as Frank was pointing out on this calendar from the one that you saw last time, is just that item added, the affordable housing plan. And that would have, we're gonna talk a little bit more about how that's gonna go, but we just wanted to include it on here so that we can discuss how it aligns with the POCD. And then on the next page of your handout, we're starting to get into community engagement. We sent a link to all of you with the draft website. If anyone has any issues with the website or anything they want to raise about it, please let us know, because we want to make it live as soon as possible so that we can start advertising the public workshop. And on the website, there's a little bit of information about what the POCD is for the public, what this committee is doing. There's going to be a page that's called Get Involved, where we'll have the link for the survey and where we have information about the upcoming public workshop and the one that will happen in April as well. And then there's also a documents page where right now, the only things on there are the 2015 POCD and the affordable housing plan, but we could add any other prior planning documents that you think would be relevant. And then as we create the Brookfield Today report that we're going to talk a little bit more about, that would be available to the public on that page. Draft chapters would go on that page. And then there's contact, which Laura set up an email address with the town's URL. So I think it's brookfieldpocd@brookfield.gov.
I believe so.
Yes, I think that's right.
So
you'll see-
BrookfieldPOCD.com is live?
It is not live yet.
Okay.
But if, does anyone have any objections to making it live? I think that's the main thing we want to iron out tonight.
Right.
Yeah, I think we would like to make it live as soon as possible, like
Right.
after tonight, we need to go through this, but we'd like to make it because this is already, 22nd of October, we've got the workshop, we're fine, just a month away, so.
Can I just bring up one related point to this?
Yeah.
We've had a survey that's been up and running.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think we probably want to stop that if we can.
Absolutely.
To redirect folks to the POCD website and also the fact that we have a workshop coming up that we want to direct folks to go to that to provide
That's right,
feedback.
yeah.
Right.
And I think you do wanna
Mhm.
stop the current survey, because
Right.
at the workshop, we do wanna talk about an upcoming survey.
Right.
After the holidays, after Christmas, New
Yeah.
Year's,
Mhm.
we'd like to get a survey up in January and February.
Right, and anything we're
And-
promoting should be more towards that rather
Yes,
than.
right,
to-
yeah.
My only question to that, Scott, is
I
I
don't-
know where it is in town,
Yeah.
from what I have posted. Is it
Mhm.
anywhere else that I need to be aware of?
That I do not know.
Okay.
Yeah, that was delegated.
Yes, yes, I understand.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. All right.
And ours we'll have a, once we get to the survey, we'll have like a closing date that's with the advertisement so that, that'll be clear. So getting into the stakeholders, before we go through these, I just wanted to ask, I know that you shared a Google Drive folder with me last time, and you had questionnaires in there that had been distributed to various boards. And I wanted to know, were there any responses that had been received?
Yes.
Because I did not find those in the folder.
Oh,
But
okay.
maybe someone can point me in the right direction, so we could just make sure we're not duplicating.
That was, that was, when did we do that? That was, Courtney led that. You were a recipient, well, both you guys, all you guys were
April?
recipient
Back
of
in
that.
April, yeah.
Yeah, and so, yes, we did receive quite a number of responses. If they're not in there, then we'll need to put them in there. I think, some of them, we can,
You have.
I think I'm on
yours.
copy of
You
most,
sent me that?
most if not all of them, so we
Okay.
can make sure that they're at least in one place.
Yeah, and I have an electronic copy of my response if you need a replacement, if
Mhm.
it can't be
Send
found.
it to me, that would be great, that way I
Okay.
can get it.
That's
then.
great, Laura.
Mhm.
Yeah, if we
Yeah.
could get it, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and then for most of these that we have listed here, we envision that we could meet with them over Zoom, and then we think there's a few that we would try to set up in-person meeting with the first selectman, the Board of Finance. I also added little numbers to note on here that we have a couple of consultants that we're working with. So Thomas Madden, who's here tonight, he would be, doing some of these interviews as part of his work developing the affordable housing plan, and he's also going to be developing the economic development chapter for the POCD. So those relevant people listed here have a little 1 next to their name, and then the ones that have a little 2 next to their name, we have a sub-consultant that's going to do the infrastructure and utilities work, and so they would be meeting with folks like the Water Pollution Control Authority.
And that's Ty and Bond. And this is one of their specialties, is water and sewer, so, an infrastructure Ty and Bond is, so they've done a lot of work with us together.
Yes, and last meeting, we did agree that we would coordinate the meetings with Laura's input and make you aware of them so that you know when they're occurring and you could join in if it's appropriate.
By the way, we should add there, like, that if any of you, because every meeting that we do here, we're gonna let Laura know about as soon as we set anything up. So if she can let you know, Laura, if that's all right with you.
Absolutely.
I think if you spot a meeting that you're interested in, you would like to participate in, you're more than welcome. It would be most of these would be by Zoom, but as Emily said, we're gonna spend the day here on some of these meetings in person, like the first selectman.
Is it possible to have a schedule made available for us so that we can see? how many-
Yeah, well, here's the issue.
It may be, I know it may be a moving target.
Yeah, it is a moving target
Yeah.
because what we do is, I always find this, that we try to meet with, sometimes it's only one, but usually it's 2 or 3 people on that Zoom meeting.
Mhm.
And it's trying to coordinate when we can get the meeting in place. And sometimes there's a week notice or something of that.
Yeah.
So, but we'll get that immediately to Laura, so that you'll know about it.
Right.
But it's hard to do an actual schedule without getting, we can
I
try.
mean, we could put, what we did in Glen Cove
Yeah.
was we did have a Google spreadsheet where we had them all listed, and as we scheduled them, they were in there, so we could do something like that, and if.
It may
you
be
have
a
that
useful
listed.
reference out later on
Yeah.
down the road as well.
Yeah, yeah, that
Mhm.
would be, and we like to reference them and acknowledge them
Yeah.
in the plan.
Yeah, and we also will schedule these kind of as we get into each of these chapters. So for example, like the fire chief and the police chief, we might be talking to them when we're working on transportation in particular, or community facilities. Yeah, so the order might be a little bit also dependent on the chapters.
Yeah. Good.
So on the next page, this is getting into that workshop that we started to talk about a little earlier. And we did mention this in the last session. The format that we anticipate for this workshop would be a short presentation where we would explain to the attendees about what a plan of conservation and development is, what the importance of the plan is, and give them information about that. And then we would also present on some of the existing conditions and the baseline kind of information. And then we would have a break in the middle where potentially the town could get coffee or snacks.
Believe it or not, coffee is important with them. Can
Yeah.
we can coordinate with you, Laura?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I
It is-
presume where we're having it, they could do that, or we could bring some in, I guess it's
We can figure something out for the lobby, maybe.
the
Yeah.
lobby,
Or
yeah.
like, for example, in other places, like if you just like run to Costco and get a big box of chips
Yeah,
or something,
yeah.
like those little chip packets or something, it's always nice for the public to have something like that. At workshops, especially like this one, it's during dinner, it's kind of during dinner time. And then during that break period, we envisioned that we would have some large poster boards with some of the vision from the prior plan and the goals from the prior plan to allow the public to look at those and kind of reevaluate them. Where have we come since 2015, and also are these still relevant, or how might we want to adjust the vision and goals for this coming plan? And then we would come back together in a large group for a question and answer period where folks can, raise their hands, ask questions. We'll be there to respond.
So imagine this, what do you need from us for this? What, or were you getting to that?
I think, I guess we'll confirm that it's been, that the high school is confirmed as a location. Okay, so there's that, then there's the snacks, if that's going to be a thing.
Although I
We
think for the
would,
members, just one idea for you as members, is at the break, we're gonna have these boards.
Yep.
And people at that point may wanna, if you've introduced because I presume Scott, you might start the meeting and introduce the committee.
Right.
So that if you do that, and then the committee, I don't wanna interfere with your coffee, but if you could maybe stand at some of the boards with us, that way all the boards are covered, because we're thinking of having maybe at least 4 different spots, because we see putting some stickers on these boards, and it takes people time, so that's one thing where I think it would be important if you could spread out at the boards, because people have all kinds of questions, because this is their first workshop, some of them don't know what a plan's about, even though we will present a timeline, they won't, there'll be all kinds of questions for you. But we're gonna ask them about, as Emily just said, about the priorities they have in terms of the current plan. We're not gonna present any recommendations, but we'd like them, like we were just over dinner tonight, Emily was reminding me that the 4 corners is in your current plan.
Yep.
And calling for certain development. Actually, I see quite a bit that's happened in that area. So has that changed? There may be some significant changes to people. And at that time too, there might not have been as much new multifamily development. Which, by the way, leads us to, at some point, we'll ask you about the moratorium and where that stands. We want to just understand it ourselves, but
Sure.
so there'll be things like that, so that if you're at those boards, I think that would make the whole thing more effective and helpful for you also. And then at the end of that, we can come back to a sort of New England town hall.
So do we have to identify what those boards will be, or is that?
Yeah,
we're
you're
gonna talk
get into
about that a little
Okay.
bit
Yeah.
later
Okay.
in the
Yeah.
meeting, yeah. And I also think that, it's gonna be there's a lot of moving parts in workshops, so it's not gonna be like an enormously long break for that kind of discussion, but We also think, when we put up these kinds of boards, people as they're coming in for the meeting, some people arrive early and they'll look at them and linger, and then some will stay a little bit after the workshop. The boards can still be there, so that it's not just during the break that is the only time they have to look at them. And we'll post all of the workshop materials on the website after the workshop as well, so people can see the presentation, they can see what was presented on the boards, and we'll also have a summary of what the major findings were from the workshop.
So how many people do we need? I'm trying to get an idea.
I think for this one,
What, let everybody get prepared for this.
we would like for committee members to be present because it is your initiative, but we're not like relying on you to staff.
Yeah, I mean, if
all of
somebody
the
can't
boards.
make
It's
it,
just if you're
you
there
can't make
and you
it.
wanna be involved, that's great. I think at the second public workshop, there will be a little bit more like interaction between
Oh,
committee members
okay.
and the public.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I think if you can make it, and, maybe stand and listen or see what people are doing on these boards during the intermission, I think that'd be great.
Yeah, and it's definitely like important for you to hear like firsthand what people are saying rather than just reading a summary that we come back with.
Or reading it on Facebook.
Yeah, and also you are all the local knowledge sources,
Yeah.
so you may know about something, like someone may approach me about a certain neighborhood in Brookfield that I'm not familiar with yet because I'm not from here, so it will be helpful to have the committee there, even during the Q&A, to field any questions about like, sometimes people will come in and they'll ask about, this development site has been like undergoing development for 10 years and what's happening with this project, and we can't answer that, so it's always helpful to have some folks from the committee and from different commissions in the town there that can chime in.
Okay.
Yep. And then the big thing that we need help with is spreading the word, to make sure that we get the turnout at this first workshop. So we have drafted a flyer. Scott has a few copies, and if everyone is okay with the design, we can, I think, Laura, you do have this as a PDF, right?
I don't think. Did I miss that? I don't
We'll keep
remember
that
seeing
one.
this one. Because I was gonna steal it and put it on Spotlight and on the Senior Center newsletter
Oh,
because you did all my work for me and then you have this.
So, so
Is that
actually
your
I was
scheduled
gonna
zoning meeting on
send,
the 20?
yeah, so I can also, I have a press
I'll be
release
there.
drafted for you as well.
That'd be
And,
No, is that your normal
if-
meeting?
Like, this can be posted on social media as it is, or we can make it like a square format, pretty quickly. So yeah, once everyone is like, okay, and we're signed off on the flyer, then, Laura, if, the town could print, copies, and then maybe there's like a location that committee members could pick up copies, or,
Absolutely.
and we can also send a PDF to all of the, committee members so that you can also, share it with your, networks.
Now, regarding signs, even though I mentioned about signs not being allowed, the fact that I see early voting signs
Early
around
voting.
just pop up, if those pop up for
It's not that they're not allowed, it's that you need to secure a permit for them.
yeah.
So, which we can do, of course, but it does depend on the location.
Yeah.
And for a Brookfield project, we might be able to post the sign at like Town Hall, like the early voting one is done at Town Hall.
I mean, that's all everywhere, that early voting, by the way.
I'm not
I
touching
don't know anything
political
about that.
signs.
No, I mean, the early voting ones everywhere,
Yeah.
which is good, because, looking at the turnout,
By the way,
900
people are
and
all
something.
telling me you got a very
Wow.
good turnout,
In 2 days, yeah.
All right,
and you mentioned about Post-it notes on the poster boards.
yeah.
How are you gonna collect those so they don't fly
Right.
off? And
Yep, so we do this a lot, so we're pretty good with it. And what we do is at the end of the session, we'll take photos of each of the boards with all of the stickies in place.
Yeah.
And I'll take close-ups of them so I can like manually enter any comments if there are.
Mhm.
Yeah,
But
and
then
then
we'll
we usually
physically
bring them
take the
back with
boards
us,
back.
yes.
Yeah.
So we actually have them, and,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and again, it's a snapshot in history, so to speak, it's not anything scientific about it, but it gives ideas.
Yeah.
And they will help us for the more, I think, more sophisticated, let's put it this way, in terms of scientific results. The survey, which we'd like to do, a survey monkey, which we described to you, you know, probably in January, February. And this refines it a little bit in our meeting after the workshop with you, maybe in December, we go over all of that and go over the survey. So this is a precursor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and any kind of those printing things would be under the town, so you could decide if you wanna make them larger or where you wanna post them.
I want to mention that just so happens that at the high school, they're going to have a youth presentation that morning as well, of all days, right? They picked that morning to do that, and they did ask that I attend and speak to them about the POCD. So I'll be like, hey, tell your parents to come here.
Tonight.
Yeah. By the way, though, we find with kids bringing
Yeah.
home,
Mhm.
print, you know, however many you think, 100 or so, but you
Mhm.
could print these and just hand them out to all the kids. And yes, it's not much notice for their parents, but a few
Right.
would come.
Right.
And it would help them at least know there's a plan underway.
Related to that too, it's also an opportunity we'll have the website up as well. Maybe we'll have a survey up at that point, or I'll just use this as an opportunity also. I think we want to engage in some of the youth as well
Yes,
on this.
yeah.
I think that was brought up before. So maybe there's some suggestions you may have on that.
Yeah.
Should we have a special survey for that purpose maybe, or something, some form of feedback for
Yeah,
them
or-
that I could
or-
direct them?
Yeah, we have done things before with, particularly high school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
You know,
nice.
try to get them involved, and also if the school, if the school board, I know this varies,
Mhm.
but if the school board allows the teachers to distribute this, then you're getting them to come.
I can ask.
I mean, instead of printing on paper, I mean, would it be better to have the Board of Education, if they can, do a blast email to every
Or blast
parent?
email.
I mean,
That would be good.
I mean, I'm all for handing out paper, but I can remember as a parent, you get so much stuff
Yeah,
coming
you
home
throw-
with your kids.
I think this is through the youth commission,
Yeah.
so.
The youth commission,
I
yeah.
believe that's who's
Yeah.
doing it,
Okay.
right, yeah.
But
Mhm.
even if they
Yes.
had some special mention to the high school students, might be
Mhm.
good. Inviting them
I have to respond.
Yes, and that should also, like, speaking of e-blasts, there should probably be like an e-blast that goes to all of the contacts at the various commissions, like the youth commission and,
Mhm. Well, it's a 10-year plan, so that's certainly relevant to them,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, so. All right, good.
So then the next thing we're gonna talk about pretty briefly, this will be part of the content that would be presented at the public workshop, the existing conditions analysis. So as Frank mentioned earlier, we kind of see this interim document that we could call Brookfield Today, or we could call it something else. And the things that are included in that would be a review of regional and local plans and projects, the history of the town and the regional context, situating it, within West Cog and near Danbury and some of the major roads and, distinguishing like the lake and other environmental kind of conditions, just putting it in its place. For the review of regional and local plans, we've highlighted a couple of these here that will be included kind of in the introductory chapter of the plan, but some of the other ones that are more related to particular issues, for example, like the freight profile, we would probably summarize that in the transportation transportation chapter, or so some of these will come a little bit later. Not that we haven't reviewed all of these already. And then the other items that would be in Brookfield Today would be the socio-demographic trends. So we've been working at piecing together some of the data that you provided and that you've collected previously, some of our own investigation, and we would kind of pull out some of the key findings from that just to get a general sense of trends. So here are a few of them. We're seeing like this steady population growth, and we've looked at the projections as well from West Cog, and we see that growth is expected to continue at about 2 to 5% over the next 30 years. We know that Brookfield has an aging population. The latest community estimates are that the median age is now 47, up from 42 in 2010, so that has indications for housing and senior housing. We've also read through the economic reports that Greg puts together, and so we noted from that the town has added 446 units since 2016, and that 45 of those are affordable. We also know that Brookfield is a more affluent community compared to the state, so you have a higher than state median income, and you also have a lower poverty rate. And like most places in the New York metro region, you see a decreasing share of the population is white alone, and increasing Latino and other race populations. So those are just some of the items that we pulled out. And then also in this Brookfield Today existing conditions analysis, we'll be looking at the land use. So we just got the data from the town, from the assessor's office, so we are working on an updated land use map as we speak. And so we will have that, and we will have, you know, a breakdown of like what percentage of land is covered by, you know, single family residential, or what percentage is parkland, and we will do kind of a description of that. And then we have also summarized your zoning text in the different zoning areas, and we also have the GIS data for that now as well, so we will be completing various maps to show those, and also looking at, you know, the area that's covered by these various zones, and then trying to explain what each of these zoning districts means in lay terms, so that the public can kind of comprehend, you know, what all of this means. Yeah, and so I think.
I'll just take that's next. I'll just do a little bit on the organization and of the plan itself, and then turn this to Thomas on the affordable housing plan. But we discussed with you at the first meeting, you know, sort of, this is our take in green here on page 8 of a 10-chapter, you know, plan update. I think it does take into account in the lower, on the bottom here, you've got the 2015 POCD, and you can see that that's somewhat similar. You've also got the Planning Commission's draft outline that you did of a plan. And we think we are able to cover all of that in these chapters 1 through 10 under the green. You might have some questions, for instance, in your outline, you have some things like public safety, which we would normally cover under community facilities, chapter 7 under the green there. We would normally cover under community facilities your government functions, including the police, including fire, EMS. So have no fear there. Public safety, we would combine, in other words, on your planning commission outline, community facilities with public safety, because it goes together, we think. So there's one thing we kind of put together a little bit, and so we've ended up with the 10 chapters we've proposed. Which
I think something we have to consider are a couple of areas. Well, one that's a big part of the existing plan, which is more a geographic one, right? You know, is the town center, whether that is part of what we do in the new one, or if it's done in a different way. You know, it's something we have to discuss, but that's more of a geographic location. Yes, the other one that similar is we never had anything in the existing one. I brought this up before on lakes, which are I think a big part of our town as well.
Yes.
And I think we should at least in some way address it, whether it's do nothing or do something different. We should state so, whatever that is in the POCD.
We would normally put that under the natural resources, open space, sustainability chapter. And the 4 corners, which were in your old plan, as a separate chapter, we would normally, we think a lot of that's been sort of started.
Oh, yeah, well,
it could go, and it could go under economic.
Yeah, I mean, certainly there's an economic side of it, there's a housing side of it, and there's other sides of it,
Oh, same for the lake too, because there's the natural resources and then there's the infrastructure
Yeah.
because of the sewer.
That's right. Yeah.
One of the things you'll see is you will see overlap between some of the chapters. So like we just finished up Newtown, and we had overlap between several chapters with some of the concepts, and it would just reinforce the goals and objectives that was brought forward from the surveys and meetings, so you'll see it interspersed between these things.
Okay, yeah, it's, yes, so those are just areas that don't necessarily fall squarely in one
Yeah.
of these
Yeah,
chapters.
I would
but
say
may-
the Four Corners, we would put under economic development now, because you've got other areas of economic development.
And there's
Four
certainly a
Corners.
housing
Oh, yeah.
concern as well.
And then we'll
Yeah.
have also, we will have a housing chapter,
Mhm.
that's chapter 4. And then I think the lakes would go under 8, natural resources, the lake and lake communities, natural resources, open space, sustainability.
Mhm.
So we will definitely
But
cover
but also,
that.
as Curtis pointed out, with like water runoff and sewer.
Cause that's a hot
into the
button
lakes,
issue
yes.
in town,
Yeah, that
about
would definitely be
storing or
covered
not storing.
by our infrastructure
Mhm.
consultants, when they talk about, so they'll be talking about utilities,
By the way,
and the
yeah.
Stormwater infrastructure.
Chapter 9.
Septic.
And by the way, the
systems.
other reason, this is a reason for us to sort of organize them a little bit this way, where chapter 9, you can put in, or I put in parentheses, tie and bond. They're responsible for that chapter, so that sometimes if you are clear on responsibilities with your team, so they're good and they're responsible for that chapter, so. And then, on economic development will be Thomas. Some of the social demographic, we have a person named Angie Witowski who's working on that now. Some of it you've seen here already, and we'll have the rest of that data actually by the workshop. So that's our sense, that's we wanted to just go over
And then
this with
also, I guess, Four Corners, we would also, there is a component to capture in the chapter 7 under community and cultural facilities. For example, like you have a lot of historic resources there, you have the craft center there, and then likewise, like in transportation, you've done a lot of work on the sidewalks and connecting the bike paths to that area. So I think that the Four Corners is really gonna be covered in a lot of the chapters.
But let us know what you think. I mean, this is a place where it's important at the beginning, because we thought we'd show the chapter outline
Yeah.
at the opening workshop, just so people know what they're gonna be. It's not that this is. we
I
can't
think that's
make
something we'll have to
modifications.
discuss, whether we think
Yeah.
that the Four Corners Town Center deserves its own, as it did in the past, or
Right.
can it be covered in separate areas,
Yeah. Yeah, no, think about that.
Mhm.
We're not wedded to this at all. We wanted to just have you see the proposal versus your 2015 plan and versus your own committee outline at the time this outline was done. So-
I think and this is my feeling, that during the workshop, you'll hear a lot about the Four Corners.
Mhm.
What people like, don't like, that,
Don't like.
whether it's the development of the commercial or the multi-unit development alongside of it. So, so that's our new downtown and revitalization.
And
So I
important-
think that was quite the focus of
Mhm.
2015. The question I think we have to look at is, should we make it the same focus? Because we're gonna get feedback on that.
Yes,
Yep.
yeah. And the other idea here is economic development may have a whole section just saying Four Corners.
Mhm.
I
And
think
then
the
it
town
might
might
be-
not wanna, focus on that so much anymore. I think they'd like to put it on the back burner almost, with the moratorium going in and, I think
Yeah.
the people who are not happy are the loudest.
Well,
I think
yes.
so also.
Yes.
But do we not have an obligation to, we're supposed to provide a vision, right, a collective vision,
Yeah.
whatever that may be, right, of what the Four Corners should be. We know what it looks like now, right?
Yeah.
By the way, I think I could see economic development being
Mhm.
subsections, Four Corners being the most important.
Mhm.
But then you had the whole Federal Road corridor. We
That's
have-
right, we've got
We have
Federal
bus
Road,
stops
right.
now,
Yeah,
the
Federal
entire
Road
length
to
of that
do
road,
with.
which is huge for people who don't
Right.
have cars.
Federal-
And maybe there
Road
should
is-
be additional focus on that lower Fairfield, in addition to the
Mhm.
Four Corners.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so there could be separate sections, but one of those sections clearly be labeled Four Corners.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
they'll find it, they'll see it.
And it will also be like a big component in the housing and neighborhoods, because most of the residential neighborhoods, I don't think there's gonna be very much change in those areas that are zoned
No.
single family. So I think the bulk of that chapter will be discussing the areas where you can
Mhm.
do different
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
I gotta think there'll be people in this town when they see the, you know, new POCD, the first thing they're gonna turn to is looking for what's the four corners.
corners.
Yeah, how do they change it?
Right.
What's their new vision?
Yeah, yeah.
I think
So
we have
it's
the
gonna be
answer
hard
for
to
that already,
ignore.
though, don't we? For the time being, at least.
Yeah, so speaking of the moratorium,
Oh, yes, yeah.
we did a multifamily development moratorium, and our definition is 3 or more units in a building, or, you know, in a design. Just in 3 zones, what we call the town center district, which is our 4 corners, and the immediate zones for the north and south, we call it the commercial gateway, north and south. So that's between the 2 exits, 12 and 13 of Super 7. That's from October 12th, which is last week, till December 1st, 2026. And the reasoning for it was because the POCD is happening, to give it time for that to be done, and any zoning reg changes that flow from that, you know, especially like in the 4 corners, that we can get them implemented and get some experience with the new regs.
Did you say it extends to December 1,
Two-
26.
2026?
Yes,
Yeah.
like 2.25 years long.
You did
So-
a
so-
2.25-year moratorium.
Yeah, and so there.
Legal counsel's okay?
Yes,
Okay.
because
You have-
not
As
only,
long as he's okay,
no,
she is
it was
okay.
not only the POCD, but it was also, we're merging our zoning and planning commission
Yeah,
starting
that's
next
right.
year.
Yes.
And
yeah.
so we have a brand new commission that has got to get their legs under it, and a new POCD, and some new regs that they have to generate from that. So we felt that we could defend the length of that.
And we also don't have unlimited sewer capacity also.
Well, so yeah, the main reason for having it.
Right.
So there's the reason for having it, running out of sewer capacity. The reason for the length is all the things I've just stated. And those things are actually, if you go up and look at our resolution online, you'll see all
Oh, okay.
those things.
That's online, we'll
So
get
that was
that.
our October 10th meeting,
Yes.
right? Yeah,
Yes.
Recent, yeah.
yeah.
I
most
I don't
recently.
think anybody spoke up against that, if I remember correctly. did
One.
they?
No, one had a sort of up against it, just, you know, give a thought to how long it's gonna be or something like that. Because they're concerned about multifamily development, which doesn't mean we don't have any. We have 2
Yeah.
other commercial zones that still allow it,
That we have proposals for.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And so, our sewer capacity, we send it all down to Danbury.
Right,
When our sewer commission, when we hit 90% of our capacity, they put their own moratorium on, and it shuts down all commercial development, which has already happened until we recently bought another 200,000 gallons a day.
I see.
So we don't want that to happen. We have some other types of commercial development that are potentially coming in, that's good for, you know, the grand list and everything else. And we don't wanna shut that down. So we're trying to do a balancing act here and not, you know,
Yeah.
run out of sewer.
Well, look, my reaction, as long as legal counsel signed off on that, that's great.
Yep, he was right there in the meeting.
That's good.
No appeals.
That's good. That's the longest moratorium I've seen recently.
Yeah,
Yeah, and, but by the way, though, as you said, you may have, that gives you time to line up everything, so.
oh, and there's already stuff in the pipeline, it's gonna add 200 plus
Mhm.
more
In the
units.
pipeline, yeah.
Yeah,
So the moratorium,
new applications.
new applications,
Yeah.
okay, you've anticipated my, right, new applications, okay, great. Yeah, so you don't have to worry about a lawsuit then, on somebody who's in process.
We hopefully, yeah, we don't have to worry about that, we don't want the state looking askance at us like, what are you guys thinking, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
So,
okay, all right, great.
And just the last comment
Yes.
on this
Yeah.
organization, we're also gonna update the schedule on the first page. Has a little bit of a different chapter organization, we just thought that a few of those chapters were not clear with the name.
Yeah, we'll update them a
And so
little.
we broke it out a little bit to make it clearer.
All
So
right,
you'll see
well,
that change.
with that, I think I should turn it to Thomas for a few minutes, because the affordable housing plan is something in our contract, and is really now by state law is kind of required to do every 5 years, so, again, it would be there's a lot of nuances to this, and I'm gonna let Thomas describe it.
Sure, thank you, Frank. So you did have an affordable housing plan, it was a 28-pager that was done in 2022, but it's always best to have an affordable housing plan that corresponds with your POCD, because things do change, especially now in the moratorium and everything else that does help out. But one of the things, what you want to do is maybe understand the regulatory, because 830J is really important, because it outlines specifically what needs to happen in order to have your affordable housing plan and all the different components. So one of the first things, typically what you do is you establish another committee. And so one of the things I was talking with Frank and Laura about this is the POCD committee going to be this committee to run the affordable housing? And if so, what I would probably recommend is to have a subcommittee as well, because what you would like to do is have either some residents who live in affordable housing on that committee to talk about affordable housing and the conditions. You'd also like to have people from the Affordable Housing Committee for the town, or the Affordable Housing Authority for the town to be on there as well to talk about it, because some of the stuff will impact some of the things that they're doing. And so that way you can really incorporate those different perspectives. And so it's not just residents talking about affordable housing, but it's people who are actually in and dealing with affordable housing all the time. So that's one of the things that needs to be discussed and sort of figured out fairly quickly here. So I can start getting those meetings set up and to make some introductions as well as doing some interviews on that. Part of what we're doing right now is analyzing the current housing data. So that is being used as part of what the POC is doing, but also the affordable housing side of everything as well. So all of the different units that are out there, how many vouchers does the housing authority have, things like that. So we have a very good idea of what the overall aspects of affordable housing are within Brookfield itself. Also, we'll be identifying all the different market types. So, like I said, you have 446 units that went in, you got 44 affordable units, 10% all the way through. So again, what are those unit mixes that are out there, and is there a gap as part of our gap analysis to the different types of units that are actually needed within the community, as opposed to is it just studios, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, or is it housing, small ADU housing, things like that. The other thing we start to look at is part 4 is really evaluating the local zoning. And Laura actually having a great conversation about ADUs and the policies earlier. So again, we start to dive a little bit more into the different concepts of affordable housing. And this actually starts to dovetail into the housing section in your POCD. And so part of that discussion that we'll have at both public sessions is identifying a lot of that stuff. That way we actually integrate it and it aligns with the POCD, which then as you start to change your zoning allows for those changes to take place, because now you have that legal backing to do it. So again, this is why we sort of align everything up, and this is why I like how it's sort of thing. The other thing that we start to look at is the financial feasibility. And so, one of the things I know I did in Stamford when we did our affordable housing plan is we set up like a housing trust fund. How do you pay for some of this affordable housing? How are you getting this money? Is there incentives? Is there feasibility studies that are being done to encourage more affordable housing as the need increases within the area? From that, we take all of that and we start to develop the plan, the principles, the goals, actions, and we set the clear goal right from the start. Some of those goals actually may transfer over into the POCD as part of your housing sections as well. And so you start to sort of interweave both of these studies together. So then that way, when it comes before the planning and zoning board, you have that document in place that offers that guidance for everything that's really being done. One of the things that we will address is low-income housing in the area, 60% area medium income, because that's what the state wants us to do. But also, how do you encourage it in multifamily dwellings or conversion of existing units? White Plains, that was one of the things that we looked at, was conversion of existing units within the community itself. Whether it be changing some of the zoning that we had that looked at downtown areas with some of the housing that converted from a 1-family to a 2-family for affordable units, things like that. And then, as well, how do we look at maybe some of the office buildings, not that you have a lot here that you convert in, but that's another thing that a lot of places are looking at is how do you convert in behind some of the commercial properties and put in some of that affordable housing. So, lastly, it's just sort of our community engagement. This is the one thing that will tie into the POCD and the public meetings. So we're sort of killing 2 birds with 1 stone. So that way we can engage the public right from the very start, so we see it as part of the plan of conservation development, not as something separate that gets very scary for a lot of people. Lastly, we'll have the implementation agenda at the very end that ties into the implementation agenda on the POCD. And so then that way it sets up your short-term, medium-term, and long-term goals as part of what the POCD is trying to do and what the Affordable Housing Plan is trying to accomplish. Okay. So all in all, the document, I suspect, you have a 28-pager. It didn't really address a lot of the stuff that the state is looking for. It was more of an addendum into WestCog's affordable housing study. So what we're gonna do is really start to define it, make it a lot more clear for the town and set those goals and how you achieve those goals, either through, like I said, housing trust funds, incentives, zoning, things like that, and we'll explore all the different aspects of it. And make sure it's in a very clear, concise manner for the public to understand. I always know that whenever I've done affordable housing, it scares the public. That's probably the scariest thing. And, we would say workforce housing or something along those lines. But it's really meant for people that would like to come back to the community. Laura and I were talking about this earlier, like when I was in Greenberg, a lot of the affordable housing my staff would qualify for. These were, staff members that had masters. But because of the wages that the town was paying them, they couldn't afford anything in
Don't
the
get any
community.
ideas, Lauren.
But, and we'd always have the people come up and go, we don't want those people. And I'm like, what? These staff members living in your town to stay here? Those are the people you don't want? So, part of what we will hear, you'll hear a lot of dog whistles and a lot of stuff that will come out. And this usually tends to be the most controversial part of a lot of the planning side of it. But we'll explain it in such a way that hopefully we can ease a lot of the fears, but give the direction to the town of how you approach this and what you need to do in the future for creating these units.
So two things I wanted to go back to on this is we put it, on the timeline I did at the very beginning, so page 2, we put the affordable housing plan starting, as you can see, early this month, so that we could at least get some of the data, so that it can influence when we do the housing chapter, which is chapter 4 under that phase 3. So we'll have a chapter on housing, but that chapter is on all housing, and it'll take care of also preservation, community, we presume a goal will remain that you want to preserve your single-family neighborhoods. So the housing chapter will be on all housing, but it will have a subset on workforce or affordable housing, and then can refer to the affordable housing, plan. But that's the first thing. We'd like to do it so that we're coordinated. So on the one hand, we're coordinated, but on the other hand, we need. I looked at your, affordable housing plan, your current one. It's not clear to me who the committee was. In other words, it says Brookfield Planning Commission.
It wasn't,
Committee of one, I think.
pretty much, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, then I have a question for
Yeah.
Laura. Do we have a housing authority?
They do have housing.
Yeah,
We
Authority.
do?
Yep.
And who is that?
I thought you did, yeah.
Yeah, we do.
You might
It's not Greg, is it?
want,
No.
you might, okay.
But that was written, that's not,
The housing
one thing I want to mention, make sure everybody's aware, that's not due until 2027. So it was put out on the bid as a bit of an optional thing. So at least the idea on our side was, hey, we're doing all this, we're gathering housing information. There's obviously a housing component of the POCD. If that gets us 75-80% of the way there, maybe we go ahead and we finish it, because it makes some sense to do so, right? But I've expressed this, but my concern is, to me, objective number 1 is getting this POCD done. And if in any way, it comes in conflict with that, then I'm fine with waiting until 2027, and that's when it's due. Or even maybe we'll have data information that makes that process much easier back at that point as well.
You will
So,
definitely
yeah.
have some information here and data that will
No
make the
doubt,
process
right?
easier, yeah.
Right.
Does the
And-
state give you guidelines? I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Does it give you guidelines saying that when you're doing this for a town,
Yeah.
we want you to put everything through this round peg.
It's XYZ that you have to follow specifically
Yeah.
for your affordable housing plan, so that it legally conforms to what the state you cannot.
Because I can't, I mean, we would read in the paper how many towns didn't even submit anything to the state. I mean, so
Right.
saying Brookfield did it and our numbers are going in the right direction is a plus for us.
It helps if
That
you
would be
go
a plus.
through a 830G moratorium on
Yeah.
affordable housing. So this helps you back up.
Yeah, and ours
Yeah,
is,
that
we
one.
have one until 2026, I think, June
Oh, you do have the
2026.
moratorium?
We do have a
Yeah.
You do have the
Yes.
826J.
We're trying to get as
moratorium.
many as possible, we got the
Okay.
affordable, we got the MUDs.
It might be challenged.
That's how we regulate.
Well, and that,
How
like
the
I
points
s-
are calculated. I
Yeah.
don't know if that ever came to a resolution. Is it, who, I can't remember the name, what town it was.
Is
So,
that moratorium in place now?
It is.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, that's.
That said,
that's
there was pre-existing ones that are being built right now,
mhm.
for
Right.
housing,
Right,
and a few incentive housing too.
Yeah.
well, that's good, that relieves pressure, obviously, to finish this, in any hurry.
Mhm.
On the other hand, we'll be getting a lot of data, so the
Mhm.
database.
We can really
Well, it's
dovetail
good
this
for
in.
housing,
Sorry.
part anyway, right?
Right, well, which we have to do. Housing is part of the POCD. Yeah, but yeah, and that's my thought, is that let's focus on the POCD, and then if we get to a certain point, we reevaluate, where are we with the housing side of it? Is it an easy jump to get to completing the housing document?
Yeah.
Then we do so.
I think that it's critical to kind of discuss this just a little tonight, so we get
Yeah.
a sense of it,
Mhm.
and a sense of where you'd like to go,
Mhm.
because we had a couple of thoughts, and this is just thoughts of the three of us discussing this in-house. If we do it as part of the plan, but with a separate, I could include you all as
Mhm.
part of the committee. The committee, though, ought to have somebody, or a subcommittee, it ought to be slightly different. And maybe have someone from the housing authority. Even this plan, your existing plan,
Yeah.
does mention the Housing Choice Voucher Program.
Mhm.
But it's
Um,
through
It's through Danbury, but it mentions it
Mhm.
from the Danbury Housing Authority, and
Mhm.
includes Brookfield.
Yep.
So that kind of thing. And then it says, Brookfield Housing Authority will work with the Danbury Housing Authority. So they've gone through some of that in the existing plan. So it might be good to do some of this, but our original thought was that we could mention this at the second workshop, where, the second workshop, by the way, in the spring, is where we're trying to have roundtable discussions.
Mhm.
So it'd be interactive, very interactive. So it'd be a presentation, yes, but then there'd be a break and people could go to tables. And we thought, hey, if we are doing this at the same time,
Yeah.
there could be a separate table, just a separate table, and maybe Thomas would
Which
at that
meets the
table
state requirement for the public
for the
meetings.
public
Mhm.
meeting.
Can I
So
just-
that's how we were trying to tie them into your current public meetings, because then we meet that state requirement.
Two birds, one stone.
It's once, yeah, we don't have to,
Scott, is the affordable portion part of the POCD? I mean,
There's a housing, housing is part of the POCD.
But we're not paying extra to have the affordable put into our POCD, are we?
Yes,
No.
and no.
yes.
No, we're not paying
Yeah.
extra for housing to be part of the POCD.
Right.
But the
But
affordable,
if we issue, if we also work on the affordable
that's additional
housing,
charge to the town.
that is additional, but
That was
that,
already part of our-
that was already.
That's part of your contract, so
Yeah.
that's what I was trying to figure out, it's already
Right.
part of the contract, so
By the way,
there's no
Right.
additional charge, so I guess I would
Well,
say,
It's a schedule.
it's
you work on,
scheduling, it's,
right?
it's a timing, I understand the
just
timing,
the
but
timing.
I would think, and of course, I'm saying this without talking to Craig, but, because I have a feeling it's gonna fall on him, a lot of this, or maybe not, I don't know, but I would say if it's part of the plan, I would think why wouldn't we want it if it's gonna conform to what the state wants? That might only
Yeah.
give Brookfield some brownie points versus other towns
Yeah,
in the
we would be
future.
doing it earlier than we necessarily have to do it. And of course, there's the resources, right? So we want to make sure that we're devoting our resources to objective number one, which is the
That's right.
POCD.
Yeah, by the way, just so you know, the contract, I'm saying this from memory,
Mhm.
contract for the POCD is basically $100,000. I remember that correctly.
Yeah.
And the contract for the affordable housing plan is 15,000.
Right.
So we're
And
not
it's
talking
budgeted.
about, and it's all committed, so it's not, there's no extra money here necessary for doing both of these. However, if we don't do the affordable housing plan, you could look at it, saving some money for it to be done later.
I would, for me, the sensible approach would be to work on the housing piece of the POCD, see where we are, see how that progresses, and then at that point, you make a decision, okay, do we make the next step and go for it,
Mhm.
if that's reasonable.
If we could make that determination sort of before the second workshop,
Yeah.
that'd
Well,
be
that's,
wonderful.
well, that's,
Second
yeah,
workshop's in
April,
the-
that
yeah,
would
that's
seem
April.
more reasonable, sure,
Yeah, if we
yeah.
could make that,
Mhm.
then at that workshop, we're trying to kill two.
I'm
birds
assuming a
with
lot of the data, a lot, you know.
It's a lot of
all
the
the
data,
data,
the only
right?
thing we
Get the
did
data
was-
together.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that workshop could serve, as Thomas said,
Yeah.
as public outreach for the affordable housing plan. I read this plan and I'm not sure who the committee was and I'm not sure what the public outreach was, so it's a plan that, well, you counted 28 pages, I counted 12.
Well,
Maybe I
maybe it
don't-
was double-sided, that was.
Oh, okay, anyway, so this, let's put it this way, this plan of, it's 2020, it's a
Yeah,
recent plan, but,
I was part of the planning when they
Yeah.
approved that.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
And
it's,
that- and that was-
it's a plan,
yeah,
you
we
got it
approved
in
it.
place, I think we could supplement it easily with,
Mhm.
current more data and support for it, and if we had it on the April workshop, the
Mhm.
second one, that would suffice, I'm not saying it would suffice, it
Mhm.
would show, though, a clear public outreach,
Yeah.
which the state
Yeah.
requires. We could do it so that we would have our housing stuff in place, and we would delay this decision for you.
And we
until
still
that-
need to define what housing is going to look like within the POCD,
Yep.
right? There's some
Yes.
aspects there, so,
Yep,
I think we should go through this process, at least see how far along we get with it,
yeah,
and see, all right, are we all, agreed on something, then we can push forward. Is there something that we need more discussion, then, maybe need more time.
yeah.
And it would necessarily
Mhm.
include discussion of affordable, because you have the whole gamut,
Mhm.
you know,
Have to.
diverse.
No, the housing
diverse
chapter
as a
should
whole,
discuss
yeah.
something on
Yeah.
affordable housing plan.
Could I just bring up one point though?
Certainly.
So we have the combining of the two commissions on planning and zoning, and we have a resource right now also to be able to work on the affordable component. Just the reason for the moratorium for the multifamily was for the combining of commissions and not to put something on them instantaneously right away.
Mhm.
Just try to keep in line timeline too, so we're gonna combine the commissions and then you're going to have 1 year to do your affordable housing plan, while you're also now a planning and zoning commission?
Well, you'll have, I think what's the year, I'm not sure when in 2027 that's due,
And I
Yeah.
wanna say spring.
yeah.
I think
So
you're right,
just
this
to,
is May 25th.
Mhm.
to have in the back of your mind, because now
Yeah,
you're taking on multiple responsibilities, it's no longer a planning commission that's
Mhm.
responsible for it. It's all of the zoning component, and then
Yeah.
I just don't wanna overburden that commission, particularly when they're learning their planning component or their zoning component depending on which side anybody comes from.
Mhm.
Just wanted to put that out there.
Okay.
But on our timeline ends before you combine the two commissions.
That's why I was,
So the other
Mhm.
thing is that if you had a separate affordable housing committee, which may consist of yourselves and
Well, planning is, yeah.
planning,
Yeah, planning
planning,
has to be that, yeah.
planning, and maybe you do have a housing authority, so maybe that person, maybe that
We have a
person,
name.
and-
It's on this, if you were curious.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, she showed it.
yeah, maybe one other or two other.
old school.
Then we could, and this would be your decision, at a later date, maybe we could then have meet the state's requirement, hey, we have the committee, we
Yeah.
should show the committee. And then you use the second workshop for public outreach.
Mhm.
We're having that public workshop, we hope, in April. Then you can see when you wanna complete this, that
Mhm.
type of thing. And it may be, Ed, I think what, Lauren, I don't put words in your mouth, I think what I interpreted from what you're saying is it'd be nice to complete this with the committee before the joint board comes on board, because they have a lot to digest.
Yeah.
It might be good to have it in place, up to you again, you know.
Mhm.
I
And
think-
it's an election, so you don't know who's
Who's
gonna
gonna
be.
You don't know,
Yeah.
how that's gonna.
Oh, geez.
Or if they're gonna be brand new, if.
I mean,
You know,
somebody's
it would
going
be,
to-
I forgot.
It's the logic for doing
Yeah.
the POCD went that way too,
By the
so
way-
that's
Yeah.
why I wanted to just
We,
make sure.
we want,
Right.
we definitely would like to stay on time
Mhm.
for this POCD.
And that's,
so that-
that's where I'm coming from.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's where I'm coming from.
We share that completely.
Yeah,
So,
it's an aggressive,
yeah.
we have aggressive timeline
yeah,
alone.
I
with
think
the
we're
POCD.
okay on the
Yeah.
POCD timeline. We're used to meeting this type of timeline on the POCD. And if you want to, you know, because Thomas is a really added resource here in terms of, and has done these before, so we'll leave that, why don't we say we'll leave that for another meeting, maybe.
Okay,
you know,
yeah,
maybe
I'd like that, I'd
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, maybe the-
And it's good to get, whatever that is, the format, matching the format of the new POCD.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so with that, we've got one more, we don't need to take too much of your time.
No, that's
but
okay.
This is kind of important, I think, for the, and that is the last section here of the agenda, is just, we would like, as we said, and I'm stealing Emily's time, hold on, I'm gonna turn this over to Emily on the, what we hope to get out of a little bit the very next November workshop, where I was mentioning, we not only would welcome you to come, we want you to come, but maybe stand at the boards and see how people say about your current plan, the current planning vision, and Emily's gonna review this.
Yeah, so we did kind of touch on this a little bit, and I did highlight some of the key points from it, and of course, Four Corners is a major element in the previous plan vision. But I also saw that in the 2015 plan, there's a separate vision statement for the Four Corners as well. I don't know if that would be necessary any longer, or if there is still a component in here, but I think it would be good to present to the public what this 4-paragraph vision was from the 2015 plan, so people could see what they had
Well,
come up
there was, I
with.
think there was its own document before the POCD.
There was in 2012.
Right, yeah,
But then it was
2012.
incorporated into the
Yeah.
2015 POCD, so there is
That may
a
have
whole
been the
section.
origin of it,
Yeah, and it has a vision in there, a separate vision. But yeah, I just like highlighted some of the key points from this vision, so there's the country charm and keeping that, protecting the quiet residential districts, maintaining streets, accommodating walking and biking, enhancing recreational opportunities, coordinated open space planning, establishment of trails, better access to water, including Still River, Candlewood Lake, and Melanona. And then also this idea of economic growth and filling out the mixed use and commercial development on your main federal road corridor, increasing the tax base, taking advantage of the highly educated workforce in Brookfield, creating new economic industries, but also providing, maintaining existing businesses, attracting young families and young professionals, providing housing for seniors as well, and then focusing the development on those areas that have your public infrastructure like Federal Road, where there's sewer. Yeah, and I think that's generally the gist of the vision, but you can all read it in detail
Yeah.
here, and it's on page 29 of the plan. And then the next page is really just the goals. And this, I think some of these are more obviously completed or like have been addressed than some of the others, at least for us. Like, for example, you have a goal here about one of the schools, I think Huckleberry Hill School and Wisconsin Middle School, about upgrading facilities. So we just kind of wanted to check in about which of these have kind of been achieved or addressed before we put them on boards for the public, and we're all ignorant of what's happened.
Huckleberry Hill is no more, so
Yeah.
they
Yeah,
can
we
relate.
did that at your school,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Which really, made Wisconsin better. because no portables.
Well, if they've taken down
If
the
they take
portals
them
yet?
down,
Have they, I
Last
hope
I
so.
checked, they were still there.
they are
Maybe
still.
we should all go there and knock them down.
It could be a
I don't need
fundraiser,
them.
$10 a swing.
Yeah,
They're using
there
them
you
for
go.
So
I
that's,
look at that economic hat.
You know, with your vision and stuff, this is where the tension in town is between country charm and, you know, providing development along the federal corridor,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
so.
So that maintains.
yeah. And I-
How do you
I-
maintain the
if-
buffer between both?
Yeah,
Well, people come to the downtown and they say, oh, it's like a city now, it's the city of Brookfield. And that's, when they see three-story buildings, that's what they think.
Yeah.
Except that's the only place it is. And the translation from the POCD through the Halliday, we had the,
Fitzgerald Holiday study.
yeah, to the actual zoning regs, there was a discrepancy. For example, the Halliday report said 2.5-story buildings and everything, we have 3-story buildings,
I
so.
see.
And some of that, you know, when you get down to the making of the regs, not that I was there, but this is what I heard. That, you know, developers come and say, oh, no, that's technically, that's not feasible, you know, financially feasible, we
Yeah.
need 3 stories. And so that's what happens, and so some of that, you know, as we go into the reg change, the vision and the reg changes, is to maybe be a little more savvy on making sure what the vision is realized.
Yeah, yeah, okay. We'd also kind of like to, if possible, shorten the vision statement and maybe have some dot points, but shorten it, and then have the goals deal with, you know, some of the details. So it would be an overall vision statement. It doesn't have to be this way, by the way. By the way, there's nothing in state law that requires you to do anything on a vision statement.
Right.
But usually a plan will have,
Mm-hmm.
you know, at least goals, you know, goals, and which we usually put with the chapters, and we'll have a summary of them. So like on the first chapter, what we usually do is, yeah, there's an introduction, what is a plan, you know, your place in the region, what does the state plan say, as Emily said, what does the regional WestCog say? But then the chapter will usually say, hey, here's what the current plan was for Brookfield, and through the process of the public outreach process of this plan, here's the vision, the refined vision for this plan, and then the chapters have the goals. So I think it would work well, but we like to start with this a little bit, just testing the public waters at the first work session, and
Yeah.
actually having you. I'm gonna go back. You asked the question, Scott. Boy, having you at those boards as well as ourselves.
Yeah, yeah.
And it would be really good, because then when we meet with you again
Yeah.
in December, we have the opportunity to refine those and refine our questions, quite frankly, for the survey, which will go out in January.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it would be
Okay.
good.
You know,
It-
the feedback we send you, I think would be very helpful for them
Yeah.
about the vision statement.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was actually quite good. A lot of that, there was a lot of good information
Well,
there.
that's, if we
Yeah.
can get, or I guess
Mhm.
we'll get that through.
We'll,
Laura.
we'll make
Yeah.
sure, yeah. I know that I was on copy of all of it, so I'll make sure that all that
Yeah.
information, we'll put it, I guess I'll put it, make sure it's in the site that we have,
No, that'd be
so you
great.
gather it,
Yeah, that'd be terrific.
yeah.
Well,
It-
I guess we're
Is it-
set with our, we're
Yeah.
done, but you may have many questions now, and
I'm kind of looking at it, and tell me if I'm wrong, is that where we are in this phase is where we're still just sort of defining the broader categories, right? Kind of like what you're showing here, this is what we decided in 2015, and then the others that we'll be presenting at the workshop, right? That's kind of where we are, we're not digging into the details, of, you know, what's
Not
gonna
too
be what,
much,
but more like what are the broader themes,
right, and
right?
for the opening workshop, right,
Mhm.
we will not have any recommendations.
Right,
We're not gonna have recommendations, those have to be developed
be
in
defined,
chapters
yeah.
with you,
Mhm.
month by month. So each chapter, you'll get each chapter for your review, and then it can go up. But by the second workshop in the spring, we'll have at least options, or we'll have preliminary ideas for people to test at the round table discussions. So we would see at that point, hey, there might be a round table, or we like to do at that second work session, do a round table and have we call a resource person at each of the tables. It might be one of you, it might be our team, but say we have I like to have a table, for instance, on transportation. Mark Fricker in our office will be working on transportation, be at that table. Now, water, sewer, Ty and Bond to be at that table. Affordable housing, if you decide to, go for it, Thomas would be at that table. And then, Emily and I would split up, and then we like to have one of you at each table, so that people can discuss anything they want. I mean, we don't want to limit the transportation table just to transportation. But if people are interested in that as their key issue, we'll go to that table. If they're interested in housing at that, or they're interested in economic development, that would include Four Corners probably, go to that table. So that might be a table that's, we get a good feel. But the difference at the second workshop is, we find sometimes when you have a town hall meeting, there's certain people that always come and they tend to dominate a conversation. So it's a way to manage, when we do have recommendations, which will be the more sensitive thing, manage, those people will have to decide what table they're gonna sit at. And we like to have one spokesperson at the end from each table, limited to 2 minutes or 3 at the most, to just summarize that table's.
That would be one of us, or that would be someone from the public?
We like it to be someone from the public, but it doesn't have to be.
Okay.
We've had meetings where it was one of you.
Mhm.
We've had meetings where actually it was staff, and we had this in Rob Sibley just.
Yeah, Newtown.
Newtown.
Yeah.
We just had one person, we had a member of the commission at Newtown, but I like the public because you might get, it's just a way to manage one person not dominating the meeting, or one group of people not dominating it.
As long as they're willing to speak for the group and not just themselves,
Yes,
though, right?
that's-
That's
yeah.
the trick there.
Yeah, that's the
Mhm.
trick. And so we like to ask the tables at that second, I'm talking now,
Mhm.
not this first one, the second
The
workshop,
second,
when we have something to say. This first workshop, I think, is just, what Emily went through. And it's not gonna have any recommendations, it's just gonna tell people, hey, what is the plan about, what is it, here's the schedule, here's what your old plan said. Take some time at the break to think about, is it still relevant, what do you like, what do you don't like? But it's not what do you like, what do you don't like, that what you're recommending, or us, we have not recommended anything yet. So it is gonna be very general in that sense. But once that's done and the survey gets out there in January, February, we are gonna be working with all the meetings and stakeholders, and we're starting to write chapters. So we're gonna be then that's when we'll be getting detailed over the winter.
Yep.
So,
And there's one really important thing we forgot to include in our presentation. So on the first page of your agenda, under next steps, so it's kind of a homework assignment that we're gonna be giving to you. Our goal is to finish this Brookfield Today document by the end of the month, and then we would transmit it to the committee for comments.
thanks.
And we hope to get comments back, like, within a week if possible, so that we can make any changes before we post that on the website, where it would be publicly available.
And I don't think that'll be a problem, because there's no new recommendations. It's really data for you to see, much of which Emily just covered in our handout. For instance, population, land use, zoning. However, there may be things you spot, and so we'd like you to see it all before it's presented.
And then the other thing on this, I also wanted to mention, last time we had decided that the committee meetings would be on the third Thursday of every month, and so we just wanted to reconfirm that Thursday, December 19th at 7 p.m.
Yeah, I think last meeting we did discuss the
Yeah.
schedule, so, yeah, we're following that. Except, the only exceptions are those months where we have the workshops, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this one.
Yeah, and this one.
One quick thing, just so I can make sure logistically I'm aware, everyone's okay with going live on the website with the name being brookfieldpocd.com? All good?
As a
And then
retail.
everyone's okay with this being, because this will be blasted out then starting
Yeah, this looks
tomorrow.
great. Yeah, I like it.
Great,
Okay,
that's great.
so just wanted to make sure everyone was in
Yeah.
agreement with that before I.
And for the 21st, for the workshop, is everybody here, I guess on our side, is everybody good for that date? I just wanna make sure. Is that enough resources from us?
I think so, yes,
Okay.
because you're the key.
Okay,
The planning board and
Okay.
committee members, and I think between you and our staff and team,
Mhm.
we'll have enough people at each of those boards and
Okay.
the intermission, so to speak.
And no other prep work is necessary for us to do what we need to do on that day?
We'll do the
or-
prep work on the stickies,
Right.
the boards,
We will print
the
the boards.
presentation.
No rehearsal or nothing like that?
I don't think we.
Laura's
need-
working on the coffee and sweets.
Yeah, but we are counting
Take
very
your
much,
orders.
very much on coffee, and if you don't mind,
Mhm.
or if you get in a bind, let me know, because as our staff all knows, I have
Coffee pots in the back of your car?
coffee pots in the back of the car, which I don't like to advertise very much, but they're the real thing. And they will, you get about 30 cups out of each one, and I have 2 of them, so it'll be enough for 60 people. I don't know how many, you might, approve. And then what we usually do is.
Get some of the local kid groups to sell candy bars or whatever.
Yeah, we just usually stop at Costco or, now that there's 2 others. Oh, well, wait, you got a
That's
Costco.
for Danbury.
Yeah.
Come on, we have to support our local
That's Danbury, right,
businesses.
they at Costco. So Costco's,
Or
actually,
BJ's, we have
BJ's.
both.
well, you got.
I've
well,
stopped at BJ's before to get cookies, the big
Yeah.
platter of cookies for me.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. By the way, they're both good, and I particularly happen to be familiar with Costco. I think their products are very good.
Absolutely.
So, the cookies, I don't wanna, whatever you wanna get. But if you run
Fantastic.
into a
I'm
problem
looking
on
for something.
coffee, just let me know, and we'll bring that.
We'll figure it
We'll
out.
bring it, yeah. That's what takes a little bit of setup, it's a little bit. And we'll come up early,
Yeah, we'll bring
Laura,
our,
we'll
the
be up
board,
early.
we have
Yeah.
easels.
yeah.
I do have some easels, so
We'll,
we can
we'll
always talk
connect
just
on
like
the
that.
like
Yeah.
HDMI cable or those kind of things.
Absolutely.
We might send, we will send the presentation that we're planning to give in advance.
Yes.
And we'll also send, a draft, like a PDF of the boards,
Mhm.
so that you see them before you get
And
there.
and Laura, we should
Okay.
come up early, because I always like to just, there seems to be like audiovisual, that kind of thing, presentation, that should be on slides. I always like to, or you might do this, but meet the technical people at the high school, so there's no,
Problems?
there's no problems, there's no last minute, gee, I didn't know anything about
We
this.
normally have an IT person there.
There,
that
that's
day-
great.
That night.
Oh, that's true.
Microphone would be good.
That's true.
A working
And-
microphone
Yeah.
this
A
time,
working
absolutely.
microphone would be great, yeah.
Can't just project, you'll be fine.
It's all those little details
No,
that we
absolutely.
have to work out
Yeah,
with,
well-
maybe with Laura, but I think with you attending, that's the key to the break, to the intermission.
Okay.
And so that'd be good. But we'll be up early, because we just learned to just make sure there's no last minute, there's always
Absolutely.
something. last
There's
minute.
always something.
There's always something, so we'll
And
be
then you
here
can
early.
enjoy Brookfield a little bit longer.
And,
Yeah.
and on, it's just kind of a random note, but, we did get some really beautiful, photographs, that the town has. But if any of you have beautiful photographs of Brookfield, while we're like laying out the plan chapters
It's not
in the
usually 80
future.
degrees this time of October.
Yeah, and it's also
It's a
like
good
all the
day.
leaves are changing, and so if
It
you just
actually is
happen
good
to
time,
take some
It's
nice
time,
photos that,
Mhm.
of like, random, like the bridge crossing or,
Mm-hmm.
various things that we might wanna illustrate later in the plan, rather than trying to find things on the internet.
Sure.
I think we did get a lot already, but.
Any festivals you have are perfect. I do take pictures
Block
of the corn
party.
maze today, so.
Yeah.
Parties, concerts.
Concerts,
It
Friday night
does,
concerts.
it just
stuff like
livens
that.
up
I
the
can
plan.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because again, I think people tend to
Parks
read
Rec.
plans sometimes on 2 levels. One, they skim it and then read the headlines and they see the photos, and it makes it more interesting for them. And then there's, of course, yourselves who are gonna read every word, you read all the details of it. So.
Or if there's a huge rainstorm and you see flooding, and we wanna include some pictures of flooding, the flooding chapter.
It doesn't rain anymore.
Please don't
Brookfield.
say
It stopped
flood to
about
me.
6 weeks ago.
Yeah.
This comes in bunches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's curious.
All right. Does anybody have anything they want to bring up or discuss? No? Are we good?
Right.
I think we're good. All right.
Thanks,
I appreciate everybody's time and efforts and attention. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
third, fourth, fifth, we're good.
Great.